A young woman stood by a dusty roadside, her woven basket filled with ripe, glowing oranges. Her name was Princess Emerald Effiam, but here, no one called her princess. She was simply known as that quiet orange girl who always smiles, even when the sun burns too hard. Emerald wasn't like the others. Beneath her simple wrapper and faded blouse was a secret. She was the only daughter of King Effiam of Obudu, a powerful monarch in Cross River State. Her father ruled a land of rolling hills and ancient pride, where tradition held weight and women of royal blood were raised to marry power, not love. But Emerald had grown weary of titles. She had slipped away to Lagos under the guise of training after university, but really, she wanted to taste life beyond palace walls, life without guards, without diamonds, without the pressure to smile when her heart was tired. And then came Daniel Carter. Daniel was a stranger, an immigrant, a white man with calloused hands, deep blue eyes that hid years of pain, and a voice roughened by the wind. He had arrived in Nigeria not on a plane, but hidden in the belly of a cargo ship that left Savannah, Georgia. Life had been cruel to him, a bankrupt family farm, debts he couldn't repay, and a country that had forgotten his kind of dream. He had boarded that ship chasing nothing but hope and the stubborn belief that maybe, somewhere far away, he could start again. When he stumbled into Lagos after days of hunger and exhaustion, he found work as an errand boy at a small mechanic workshop. He swept floors, fetched spare parts, and slept behind old tires in a dimly lit corner of the garage. It wasn't much, but it was life, and it was more than what he had left behind. One morning, as he walked to fetch food for his boss, he stopped by a street corner where a young woman sold oranges. She smiled at him, not because he was white or strange, but because she smiled at everyone. "Oga, you go buy orange?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then smiled back. Yes, I will." Her voice was gentle, her eyes bright and kind. He bought 2 oranges, but what stayed with him was the sound of her laughter, light, musical, like the wind in the trees back home. He didn't know her name, but he found himself passing by that same corner every day after. Sometimes, he bought oranges, sometimes, he just stood there, pretending to look busy, hoping she would look his way. Soon, they began to talk. Simple things at first: how the day was going, how hot the weather was, what Lagos traffic felt like. She told him her name was Emerald, and he told her he was Daniel from America. They didn't speak of the past, or the future, just the quiet moments that filled the space between their laughter. Emerald began to look forward to seeing him. There was something about his honesty, his humility, the way he didn't see her as a princess or a prize, but as a woman. She found herself drawn to the roughness of his hands, the sincerity in his eyes, and the sadness he never spoke of. But secrets don't sleep forever. One evening, as Daniel walked her to the small compound she rented in Mushin, one of the poorest parts of Lagos, a sleek black SUV stopped beside them. The driver stepped out, bowing slightly. "Your Highness," he said quietly, "the king has been searching for you." Daniel froze. "Your Highness." He turned to Emerald, confusion written all over his face. She looked away, her heart pounding. "Daniel," she whispered, "I didn't mean to lie. I just wanted to be normal." But it was too late. The driver gestured politely, "The king awaits." While So was gently shoved inside the car, Daniel was bundled in the boot of one of the convoy that drove behind the SUV car. Back in Obudu, the palace buzzed with whispers. The lost princess had returned, and with her, a man from across the sea. King Effiam was furious. "You dare disgrace this family," he thundered. "A foreigner, a beggar, a man without roots, and you call that love?" Emerald tried to speak, but her words broke in her throat. "Father, I love him." The king's gaze hardened. "Love is not for those who carry the crown." Days turned into weeks. Daniel was kept in the guest quarters under close watch. He tried to speak to the king, to explain himself, but every attempt was met with disdain. The elders whispered that it was an abomination, a princess marrying a commoner, worse, a foreigner. One night, Emerald snuck into his room. Tears filled her eyes as she clutched his hands. "They will never let us be, Daniel. I can't let them destroy you for my sake." "I don't care," he said softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I crossed oceans for peace, not power. But I found you instead. If this is all I get, it's enough." She cried in silence, her heart breaking with every word. "Promise me," she whispered, "if they send you away, you leave. You remember me only with peace." The next morning, King Ephiam arranged for Daniel's deportation. The officials came quietly, and before the sun rose, Daniel was gone. No goodbyes, no letters, just a hollow silence that lingered in the air. Emerald stopped selling oranges. She stopped smiling. For months, she wandered the palace gardens, her heart trapped between duty and love. The world expected her to marry a duke from another kingdom, but her soul still lived by the streets of Lagos, where an American man once bought oranges and laughed under the sun. Years later, at a charity event in Calabar, Emerald stood on stage, now a queen in her own right as her father had passed on barely 2 years earlier. Her speech was poised, graceful, but her eyes glistened with memories she never forgot. The rain fell gently that evening, soft against the palm leaves that framed the royal garden. Princess Emerald sat by the wide balcony, the golden beads of her gown glittering under the dim light. The years had been kind to her face but not her heart. She was now Queen Emerald Ephiam, ruler of Obudu after her father's passing. Her kingdom thrived, schools rebuilt, hospitals opened, roads paved. Yet, beneath the crown, she was still the same woman who once stood by a dusty Lagos roadside, selling oranges to survive and to breathe freedom. But there was a part of her that never healed, the memory of Daniel. It had been 12 years. 12 long years since that night they took him away before dawn. She had searched quietly, through friends, diplomats, and every possible connection. But it was as if he had vanished into the wind. No trace. No goodbye. Just silence. Tonight, as thunder roared in the distance, she whispered his name to the dark clouds. "Daniel, wherever you are, I hope you found peace." Far across the ocean, in the calm countryside of Georgia, a man sat by a wooden desk. His beard had grown silver, his face lined with time, but his eyes still held that same quiet sadness. Daniel Carter had rebuilt his life. After being deported, he was lost, heartbroken, directionless. But he had turned that pain into purpose. He started small, working with a local foundation that built wells and schools in rural African communities. His passion and sincerity earned him respect and, eventually, wealth. Now, after years of hard work, Daniel had built the Horizon Foundation, an international charity devoted to providing clean water and education across Africa. When an invitation came from Nigeria to honor international philanthropists at the Calabar Global Impact Forum, he hesitated. But something deep within whispered, "Go." The night of the event, the hall was adorned in gold and green. Music drifted through the air as dignitaries arrived in shining cars and glittering outfits. Daniel walked in quietly, dressed in a simple black tuxedo, his heart pounding with memories. Then he saw her. Emerald stood on the grand stage, her poise regal, her smile composed. The moment their eyes met, the world seemed to tilt. For 12 years, he had imagined this moment, and now that it was real, he could barely breathe. Her words echoed across the hall. And to the men and women who have crossed borders to bring hope where there was none, we say thank you. Today, we honor those who remind us that humanity has no color, no boundary, no crown too high, no heart too low. When she turned to present the award to the next honoree, the master of ceremonies' voice rose. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Daniel Carter, founder of the Horizon Foundation." The room burst into applause. But Emerald froze. The microphone slipped from her fingers and clattered softly against the floor. He walked toward her, each step heavy with 1,000 unspoken words. She whispered his name, her lips trembling. Daniel. He bowed slightly, his voice low. Your Majesty. They all watched, unaware of the storm swirling between them. She handed him the plaque, their hands brushed, and something inside her broke open again. Later that night, after the event ended, Emerald stood alone by the garden fountain. She heard footsteps behind her, familiar, cautious, reverent. You shouldn't have left, she said softly, without turning. I didn't have a choice, he replied, his voice strained. They made sure of it. She turned then, her eyes shining with tears. I searched for you, Daniel. For years. He smiled faintly. And I searched for myself. Silence fell between them, the air thick with memories. They kissed briefly but immediately stopped as they heard the guard cleared his throat from a distance. Are you married? She asked quietly. No, he said. I tried once, but my heart never listened. She let out a shaky breath. I wear a crown, but I've never known peace since you left. He took a step closer. Then maybe the sea brought me back for a reason. Her tears fell freely now. Daniel, everything's different. I'm queen now. My people, my council, the traditions, they wouldn't understand. He reached out, gently touching her hand. Then don't let them understand. Just let them see what love looks like when it survives time. Her fingers trembled in his. You make it sound so simple. It always was, he whispered. It's the word that makes it hard. They stood there, two souls separated by power, joined by pain. The moonlight bathed them in soft silver as if blessing their reunion. For weeks after that night, they met secretly. Sometimes in the royal gardens, sometimes by the edge of the river where the forest met the sky. They talked about the years apart, the pain, the loneliness, the dreams that refused to die. But peace doesn't stay where duty still breathes. One evening, the Prime Minister found out. And soon, whispers spread through the palace. The Queen and a foreigner. Again. The council demanded an explanation. Your Majesty, they said, this man is not one of us. He brings danger, scandal, weakness. But Emerald stood tall, her voice steady. The only danger here is a love too strong for your prejudice to understand. The room fell silent. Daniel stepped forward, his tone humble but firm. If my presence puts her reign at risk, I will leave again. But know this, I never came for her crown. I came for her heart. And in that moment, even the elders couldn't speak. That night, as Daniel packed to leave quietly once more, Emerald appeared at his door. She held a small wooden box. Inside lay an old, dried orange peel, from the day they first met. Her smile trembled. Do you remember? He nodded, tears in his eyes. I never forgot. She took his hand, placed the box inside it, and whispered, wherever you go, take my peace with you. Because I lost it the day they took you away. He pulled her close, and for a long moment, they simply breathed each other's air, no words, no crowns, no rules. Just two hearts that had been waiting too long. When the dawn came, Daniel was gone. But this time, she didn't weep. She stood by the window, watching the horizon glow with light. Because she knew, someday, somewhere, the sea would bring him back again. And maybe then, love would not have to hide.